MR2 is a car unlike any other. The M, of course, standing for mid-engine, R for rear-wheel drive, and 2 because that son of a gun has 2 seats and nothing more. In my personal opinion, one of the sexiest cars ever to brisk this planet. Well, mostly positive in my book. What its purpose here is, many still don't really know, but it's here to stay. So, Toyota MR2, what makes it so great? Some of you less well oriented with the MR2, as I was, may be asking what the heck the AW10 is. Before this video, I had only heard of the AW11. Well, the AW10 is simply the same chassis, but with the smaller 1.5 liter 3A LU engine. This engine was made with top-of-the-line, late 70s technology, employing methods from the world oil crisis to maximize efficiency, and featured an amazing 82.4 horsepower at 5,600 RPM. Single cam Toyota 4-banger used in an 80s car? Where have I heard that before? Well, that's right, the legendary shitty version of the AE86, the AE85, famously featured this engine in Initial D. I'd still kill for a JDM one though. But that's not what we're here for. The superior engine choice, much like the Hachiroku, was the 4AGE. Your two available flavors were either the naturally aspirated red top 4AGE, making 128 horsepower with our classic TViz system, or the same red top but now supercharged 4AGZE, making 145 horsepower, sans the TViz. Now get this, the 4AGZE had an electronic clutch on the supercharger, meaning that if it wasn't needed, it wouldn't seep power from the engine. To put it simply, the Supercharger had VTEC. Not really, but same idea. Oh boy, I've just done some digging and found that the AW11 chassis is also split into 2 different timelines. The earlier Mark 1A and the later Mark 1B. Why does this matter, you may ask? Well, unless you're an enthusiast, it really doesn't, except that I'm 97% sure that the Mark 1A actually came with the blue top 4AGE, rather than the red top mentioned earlier. Totomate. Now, I'm reading that the valve cover was painted with red lettering, but was not in fact a red top. Quoted from a Wikipedia entry on the 4AGE. Much confusion exists, even among dealers, as to which model contained what equipment. I'll just leave this one to rest for now. Would you look at this, the AW11 has something other than an engine. Now our boy, Roger Becker, in this clip here, whipping a Lotus Esprit in the James Bond film The Spy Who Loved Me, had a big hand in the development of the AW11 suspension. Drawing elements from many 60s, 70s, and 80s Lotuses, Lodi, both are correct plurals. This meant that the AW11 was going to handle well and be ready for whatever you needed to throw at it. From the factory, the AW11 was stiff and enthusiast-oriented. Whether it be the track or the tailgate, it would get the job done. No wonder it won Japan's Car of the Year on its release in 1984. Engines, engines, engines. Get ready for more of them. The SW20, much like the AW11, also had a chassis code that I had never heard of, known as the SW21. Its engine was the 2.2-liter 5S FE, making 130 horsepower in the most common model available in the US market. The US market was of course the only market to receive the underpowered engine. What you really want in your MR2 is the 3S GE, both available in a naturally aspirated and now turbocharged trim. The NA3S GE made a respectable 163 horsepower in the JDM-G model trim, but the big daddy on top is the 3S GTE, with an in-house Toyota-produced turbocharger pushing 11 PSI. At that boost range, it managed to make 200 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. With a 5-speed manual transmission and a 2,800 pound curb weight, the power was more than enough to push the Ferrari 355 through any corner and across the quarter-mile line in just over 13 seconds. That's faster than the NSX at the time. The AW11 had Roger Becker, but the SW20 has someone even cooler, American racing legend Dan Gurney, that among other legendary accomplishments was known for being too tall to fit in many of his race cars. His Formula 1, Le Mans? Is it Le Mans or Le Mans?
Le Mans.
Le Mans. Alright, just like the French. His Formula 1, Le Mans, NASCAR, and general racing experience was used to hone the SW20's handling characteristics right where Toyota wanted them. His 6'4" stature probably contributed greatly to the expansion of the SW20's interior space when compared to the previous generation. Unlike the AW11, the SW20 was given a few special trims and models. Ever played Gran Turismo 2 and raced a certain car called the TRD 2000 GT? Well, this isn't the real 2000 GT, but Toyota did offer a factory wide-body kit for the MR2 to emulate it. Now, it wasn't all looks with the kit. Customers were also offered many options to choose from with handling and power components. It's rumored that Toyota built one to 500 horsepower as a request. Toyota Motorsports, also known as TOMS, also made a kit for the SW20 known as the T020 or T020? Wakaranai. It included a more subtle body kit and engine components focused more on the naturally aspirated 3SGE. Also, of course, the suspension got some tweaking done. And would you look at that, the TOMS MR2 is also in Gran Turismo. Alright, now the third generation MR2, or the W30 as the chassis code calls it, had always been a car that I've disliked. I never really had a reason, it just felt like a bad car. However, now that I've done some research, the W30 has been revealed in a brand new light. Most people brush it off as just a reverse Corolla but uglier. But the AE86 was literally a Corolla, and we all know how much you guys like those. To kick this off, I would be showing you a kick-ass video of the MRS, the Japanese model of the W30, keeping up with the Dorikin himself in his legendary hatchie, but because the video was made by Best Motoring / Hot Version, and they don't understand American fair use laws, here's a little recreation. Pretty crazy, am I right? If you want to check out the actual version, just Google it. The W30's engine on the surface appears to be nothing to write home about. It exclusively came with the 1ZZ FED, a slightly modified version of the Corolla engine at the time. From the factory, the lower 138 naturally aspirated horsepower pushed the 2,200 pound chassis to 60 miles per hour in just under 7 seconds. Surprisingly, many tuners have been able to squeeze impressive numbers out of the 1.8 liter 1ZZ, sending many W30s down the highway and track at crazy paces. Many W30 enthusiasts, when looking for higher horsepower, will elect to rip a 2ZZ GE out of a Celica GTS or Corolla T Sport and modify that platform. Oh, and the 2ZZ was also featured in the Lotus Elise and Exige, so it has to be good. There's Lotus once again. Damn, they sure love collaborating with Toyota. Now, transmission options on the W30 are where things get interesting. It was either available in the classic 5 or 6-speed manual options, or a peculiar 5 or 6-speed clutchless sequential manual. Now, I would be inclined to define a clutchless sequential as an automatic, but because there's no explicit drive gear and you have to move through the transmission linearly, that is not the case. You may be saddened to discover that the sequential options were actually slower to accelerate than the manual options, but hey, still a really cool option to have. Another cool option available to those in Europe and Japan was a hardtop that looks absolutely stunning compared to the typical Spider configuration. Now that we've finished the basics of every generation, we can now focus on every MR2 basher's favorite meme, Snap Oversteer. But what is Snap Oversteer? First discovered by the Nazis in the 1940s, no joke, you'll find out why. Snap Oversteer or liftoff oversteer is a characteristic of some vehicles to transfer vast amounts of weight to the front wheels after letting off the throttle. This in turn causes the rear wheels to lose traction and kick out, initiating oversteer. Regular Car Reviews explains this great in his SW20 video, so go check that out after this. While not exclusive to mid and rear engine cars, they are more commonly affected with their unique balance and weight characteristics. The MR2 from almost every generation is affected, with the SW20 notorious by this issue with the mid-engine nature of its chassis. Anyone who tells you differently is lying. When skilled enough, most MR2 drivers can predict and work with Snap Oversteer, but many new drivers to the platform who are not familiar with it end up wrecking their cars. Now, where did the Nazis factor in all this? Well, after invading Czechoslovakia in 1938, the Nazis loved the Tatra car company in the country so much that they kept them in production. Many Tatras were heavy and a rear engine, causing many German officers who drove the cars recklessly to crash and kill themselves. It got so bad that the Tatra was named the Czech secret weapon, and Nazi officers were forbidden from driving them. Little cool piece of automotive history there. In terms of motorsports, the MR2 had a lot to offer and was used all over the place. To keep things concise, we'll go over them quickly. This also tends to be the section I get the most facts wrong on anyway, so feel free to correct me in the comments as you do. The AW11 was of course an 80s car, and according to many people, including myself, the 80s was the golden era for motorsports. One of the most popular classes of this era was Group B Rally, and Toyota knew this. They began development on an AW11 based rally car known as the 222D, primarily for Group S and possibly expansion into Group B. Sadly, Toyota was unable to complete the 222D project before the closing of Group B and subsequently Group S, and the car never saw official race use. However, many prototypes have been shown featuring many rumored engines and power in the range of 750 horsepower. Not too shabby. The SW20 competed in a few different classes. In the Japanese Grand Touring Championship, it took first place in 1998 and 1999 against some tough competition. It used the race variant of the 3S GTE and was heavily modified from the stock chassis, but still kept a close tie to the road legal variant. The SW20 also had a hand in Le Mans with the highly modified SARD MC8R. SARD? S-A-R-D? I don't know. Instead of a 3S GTE, the MC8 had a twin-turbo 1UZ FE power plant installed. However, it did not fare as well as its Super GT cousin and was passed up by more advanced cars. Also, a single road car variant was built to meet homologation requirements, but its current whereabouts are unknown. Lastly, the W30 only competed in one class, Super GT, formerly the Japanese Grand Touring Championship. It did alright, but the interesting thing was that in 2008, Disney Japan collaborated with Toyota to bring us the W30 race car sponsored by Pixar's Cars. How many manufacturers can claim a Lightning McQueen variant of their cars? Ka-chow. This script is already 1,977 words as it is, so I'm gonna wrap it up soon. But before we get to that, I wanted to get some insight on the MR2 from a friend who is more knowledgeable with them than anyone I know. His name is Nick, owner of Nixspeed Racing in Erie, Colorado. His shop does pretty much anything you could ask for, but they specialize in the MR2 chassis, more specifically the SW20. I asked him a few questions. What, in your opinion, makes the MR2 so great? The MR2 is great because it's a great platform with great looks at a low price. I would tend to agree with that. How do you feel about the whole snap oversteer controversy? Snap oversteer is a real thing. It affects many cars, including a lot of Civics. It affects poor driving technique. Mid and rear weighted cars are definitely subject to a pendulum effect if you do not handle weight transfer properly. Best engine in the MR2? The best engine is very subjective. For a fun street car, the TOUGE RFE is a great option. If you want to go faster or race, I prefer the 3S GTE. Favorite chassis? Favorite chassis hands down is the 2nd gen SW20. It looks the best and is very overbuilt, which allows them to handle a lot of power and speed. Also, the biggest interior wise, so I fit better in them. Dream build. If it's not the one you already have, of course. My dream MR2 is a toss-up between a stock street car, which I'm currently building, and a full race car, which I'm also currently building. I want to show the world that the SW20 is a great race car, but I also want to drive one around and have a lot of fun with it on the street. The MR2 is one of those chassis you either love or hate. My personal opinion is that it is all too often overlooked for all it has to offer, especially the 3rd generation. What do you think about the MR2? Love it or hate it? Don't forget to let me know in the comments below. If you like the MR2, Japanese cars, TOUGE, or just racing in general, don't forget to check out my documentary about the local TOUGE scene and all it has to offer. Also, if you're still sticking around to watch this, it seems you like my videos. If you'd like to see more videos like this, you could check out my Patreon and maybe consider contributing. No matter what you do, I have to thank you so much for watching.